But what if the reality was that you never loaned me money? What if the reality was that you just exchanged what I signed for the money, or you was able to create that money out of thin air because of me? If this was a real full disclosure contract, you would just disclose that to me, that, hey, we are working together. Hey, we are business partners.
That number that we're looking at, that is the remittance number, right? That the one that we normally see on the bills, like our utility bills or things like that.
So I mean, there's the account number, series designation number that could be on there. But when you look at a coupon, I mean, just like any other check, it has the account number and the routing number. But this is only an indication that it is connected to an account. A lot of times, and I made a video about the number on the remittance, and really that was just to drive the attention towards the number. But what I actually broke down towards the end of the video is that the number doesn't really like help, is not gonna like help you discharge the debt. It's only an indication that it is an instrument. It's an indication that it is something that is a security. It's an indication that the bank makes money on it. Okay, so that indication gives you lets you know that this is something that you can challenge them on. One of the questions that you can ask on the premise of a contract is, where is the money coming from? Where is the money going? Okay, part of that is more of, I'll just say it's just more of an indication that it's being monetized when you see that number. Okay, so
Okay.
that's what I'll say. So it's less about the number, it's more about the questions that you will ask because that number is attached to it. There's also a lot of people talk about a QSIP number, and again, the QSIP number is an identifying number for a security. It's just an identifying number, but that there lets you know that it's money. And they'll make you think that you can't accept it for value, you can't use it, or that they are not using it. And this is what is a direct violation of any type of lending, any type of contract, because it requires full disclosure.
And okay, yeah. And I remember in the video you talked about how contracts are supposed to include full disclosure, but why is that such a big deal when billing statements don't clearly explain everything, especially when it comes to debt? Well, first of all, we don't even fully acknowledge the fact that this is a contract because we're not aware that it is a contract. So what is the repercussions when someone, I guess, gives me a contract that I don't fully understand?
It becomes unenforceable. It becomes null and void. So that's the point. Like when it comes to, because if one says we are loaning you something, this is what you're contracted to, loaning you something and you paying back what we loaned. But what if the reality was that you never loaned me money? What if the reality was that you just exchanged what I signed for the money, or you was able to create that money out of thin air because of me? If this was a real full disclosure contract, you would just disclose that to me, that, hey, we are working together. Hey, we are business partners. I'm not loaning you anything. You are signing off on a contract or on a promissory note, on a security, and I'm going to take this security and exchange it with the Federal Reserve. Now, all of this is already broken down in modern money mechanics. So one wanted to actually look up what is happening when it comes to loans or how money is created. It's in modern money mechanics. So it's not a secret. They just don't tell people who don't do they're not going to tell you because they are able to make extra money on top. And it's not that the bond and the coupon is the contract. Is more about, when you originally got in the contract, this should have been disclosed to you, that we're sending you bonds and coupons that you can accept for value because it does have a value. You don't have to send us this here. You don't have to send us this dollar. Okay? This is not what makes us money. What makes us money is that coupon. What allows us to participate in commerce is your original loan agreement, not this dollar. Because this dollar is just a debt certificate, okay?
And to see most people and that's normal because it's not like anyone taught us this at all. But most people, we look at a bill, because I've done it, of course, and we just assume that it's a request that we're paying back something that we owe. But what we're not told is that the payment coupon at the bottom might actually be a negotiable instrument, but no one ever explained that to me. And that now this legal document can actually route financial value and be securitized. And no
Yeah.
one ever told me that. I never understood that. And I'm entering into this financial transaction without knowing the full scope of the agreement. And I think that's where a lot of people get lost, because there's no way for like us to actually comprehend this information unless someone like yourself is making content that actually covers this. And we just know so little about this. So in your video, I know that you touched on the idea that these numbers, they often don't actually tie back to the original lender. Where are they actually going if they don't, like if I get a bill for my power, I live in Nevada, I'm assuming if I pay it, it's going to Nevada Energy. What's the significance of it actually not going to Nevada Energy but going somewhere else?
So it's not that when you don't pay, like when you pay it, it doesn't go to them. Of course it goes to them. That's where they're double dipping. The question is more of, did you guys already get paid? Because there's a thing called double recovery, double collection, where if a contract or a debt has already been settled, then you can't come after the person for the debt, or the obligation is nullified if it's already been paid, whether it was from you or whether it was from somebody else. Okay. If it was settled, what would be the reason for you to come after me? And this is double recovery or double collection, which is illegal. This is why debt collectors are so easy to challenge, because they just buy your information. They're not actually buying the obligation per se. They're just buying your information and saying, hey, you didn't pay this person, so you have to pay us. But before they sell it to a debt collector, they get paid through insurance. They get paid through filing a 1099-C and charging off the debt. When your debt is charged off, that means they filed a 1099-C and the IRS discharged the obligation. They also get paid through securitization, where they sell your security to Wall Street or investors, mortgage back as a mortgage backed security, or something that is monetizable. An investor buys it. For whatever reason, we're still figuring out what they use it for, but it's more of that they are getting paid up front, and they want to make extra money by making you think that that bond and coupon is a bill. But even when you look at the bill, if it's something that you owe, it should have a negative number on there. Okay. So
Now, legally speaking, because I guess that's where we're going now, I know you're familiar with UCC 3-603, and that's the idea of tender and discharge. And when it comes to that, what happens if they refuse my tender of payment? Like if I try to reroute the value back to me so that I can kind of wipe out this like balance. What happens if they refuse?
if they refuse, then it is discharged according to UCC 3-603. And the refusal, when it comes to a contract, there is multiple foundations of a contract. There is offer and there's acceptance. When you send a negotiable instrument or a tender, okay, if you pull up the definition of tender in law.cornell.edu, the definition of tender is to unconditionally offer money or performance to meet an obligation. When you tender something, you are unconditionally offering money or unconditionally offering a performance to meet an obligation. So now you have sent the offer, and so the next thing that they must do is either accept it or reject it. But when it's unconditional, that means under no conditions, you can either accept this or reject it. There is no counter offer. So they'll do two things. They can either accept it or they can reject it. But the law says that your rejection or your refusal means discharge. So what do? They don't do anything at all. They ignore you. They don't respond back. And that, under UCC 3-505, I believe, talks about what dishonor is.
For everyone, again, all of these, I'm going to try to list all of these, but you definitely want to be able to look up all this information. Don't take our word for it. You can Google this stuff and look it up yourself, read it, interpret it. If you don't understand it, copy, paste it, put it in the chat GPT, have it interpret it for you. Whatever the case may be, even listening to this, and while this information is amazing, to actually act on it in a court of law is a totally different thing. You have to be able to understand this information.
Yeah,
So,
and they're gonna expose you if and this is why, back to the point of like just like breaking down steps for people, but also at the same time talking about the education or the overstanding of the information. You need both, okay? But the thing is when you fully understand the information, the steps come easier because I explain the steps to people. I can say, hey, first thing you do is when they send a letter, when you send your notice of tender, if they do not respond, you send a fault and dishonor letter, pretty much giving them an opportunity to cure and letting them know that they are at fault. You have dishonored me. You didn't even send me a refusal or an acceptance. You didn't even send it back. I gave you clear instructions in my letter that if you decide to dishonor this or you decide to ignore or refuse it, then according to UCC 3-603, the obligation is discharged. I said that in my previous letter. And the only reason I was able to say that and be confident in that is because I understand the law. And the law told me to say this. Okay. But then also at the same time, in that fault and dishonor letter, I'm giving you an opportunity to cure. So I'm moving in good faith, which is also talks about evidence of dishonor, presentments, understanding contract law. So now a fault and dishonor. I'm giving you that second opportunity. But then if I gave you two opportunities to respond and you didn't respond, now I'm going to have you default and I'm going to send you a default notice, laying out all the statement of facts, laying out exactly how you have dishonored me, how you refused me, the legal merit behind everything, and how now you have to adhere to my demands because you default. And then after that, you would take that evidence into court. Okay, I can break that down right now. And to some people who really research it, they'll say, damn, he just gave me the whole blueprint just now. But then there's other people who will say, well, we'll still ask questions about that. And I just told them it. And the reason why is because they don't understand the law. You know, they didn't read it themselves. They didn't review it, you know. So it's super important for you to educate yourself even after you watch these videos, because a lot of times people get excited because they just heard it and they get motivated. But I don't want you guys to get motivated. I want you guys to build the discipline to actually research the information yourself, become comfortable with the information. Because if you go in court, yes, you may do all the steps properly, but if you're unable to explain it or even persuade a judge to say, okay, this person knows what he's talking about, we can't take advantage of him, then they're going to take advantage of you. And they're going to go and say, well, you agreed to pay. And then what is your argument of that? You know, a presentment, when you send a presentment under UCC 3-501, it says presentment is a demand. I'm not asking for permission, I'm demanding. So I just created a contract by sending you a presentment, okay? And your performance is you providing whatever it is that I asked for. Whether it's to let me know whether you accept or reject it, whether it's to return the check back if you decide to reject it, or whether it was for me to ask you about certain disclosures about the contract. I created a contract within itself by sending you a presentment of the demands that I, by law, can do.
Yes.
If you don't do it, now forget what I owe you. You just nullified that contract itself, because conditional acceptance goes like this. I will pay. I'm not refusing to pay. But if you can prove X, Y, and Z, I'll conditionally accept this offer if you can prove X, Y, and Z. So if you do want your payment, and if you are moving in honor, and if this contract follows contract law, the UCC, the USC, then you should be able to provide that stuff to me.
My takeaway from this is that refusal or silence does not protect them. And it can actually trigger a discharge and then open up the doors for legal remedy, I guess, at that point. It only works if you've actually done your part lawfully and correctly, which is why knowing this process is just as important as taking action.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That process being the administrative process that I explained about notice, fault and dishonor, and default.